Of course, this is in the midst of, we've learned in the last couple of months, the government giving the RBI a little bit more power here to tackle this bad debt issue, also this new bankruptcy law that passed last year. Is there a sense now that these measures are a little bit different from what we've seen in past, those measures which have largely failed?
Yeah, possibly. I think there's been signs that the RBI and the government are finally realising the scale of the problem. They've made banks actually acknowledge the scale of the bad debt problem. Bad debts are already 8% of total loans in India's banking system, which is incredibly high by emerging market standards. And in the pipeline, stressed assets, which are classed slightly differently to non-performing loans, are another 8% of total loans. So it's a real problem. And I think that there are just a few signs that the government is beginning to get to grips with. The new powers that you mentioned that have been given to the RBI could help, I guess, at the margin for insolvency proceedings to actually begin. But I think that really this only scratches the surface of the extent of the problems. There's no real indication that banks could even take on the haircuts that might actually lead to a resolution.
Sure.
And so I think much bigger measures are still needed.
Like what? Is it more on the fiscal side, or what could actually start to revive this banking sector now?
Well, I think one of the biggest measures that we need to see are much larger scale capital injections into the banking sector from the government. As I mentioned, banks don't have the requisite capital to really deal with taking on major haircuts if that's what is agreed under these insolvency proceedings. So we need to see much larger recapitalizations. Now, I guess the issue with that is that the government itself is attempting to tighten fiscal policy. So really the capital isn't there, in terms of the public sector. I think that this could be potentially dealt with by the government actually selling off some of its assets in state-owned banks. State-owned banks account for around 85% of India's banking system. So there's scope there to actually lower its stake and actually increase private participation. So actually a move towards privatization. And I think that would help to kind of recapitalize the banking sector, but without damaging the government's own finances. However, I think politically,
sure,
this is a very, very difficult move in India, and it doesn't look like something that the government really has the appetite for.